Should we get started?
Yeah. Well, how you doing?
I love you. We forgot to say that at the end of the last episode. I feel really bad about that.
Well, I love you too. That's so funny.
I'm really anxious about this.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting you to just out the gate just jump in with that.
I say it to you all the time, though.
No, yeah, I love you too. Thank you for that. I wasn't like upset. You know?
I know. I was upset. It hurt me deeply. Welcome to episode 8, I think it is.
Yeah.
Episode 8 of the Mom and Eric podcast. And today we are here in the same space, as you can see. This is not just clever green screen. It's just green screen.
I don't even do that.
Green screen.
What?
Anyway. This is not just green screen. We are actually in the same space, which is probably my favorite way to podcast, but you know, we need to do what we need to do. Anyway, for today's episode, I did not send out an outline ahead of time, but we know what we're going to talk about. I just decided that we would freestyle a little bit. Okay?
Do we not freestyle?
I'll guide
every
the
time?
discussion. No, I always have a plan in my mind when we have these discussions.
Oh, so you have no plan for this?
I do have a plan.
Well, then what's freestyling about it?
I didn't share it with you ahead of time.
Okay, then.
Okay.
But you think I come in like, yeah, I'm ready to talk about the Marvels. I have actually got, set list of thoughts I'm going to display.
Exactly. All right, so that's what we're going to talk about today.
I think about it, though.
We're actually going to talk about The Marvels, the movie, which we just saw together yesterday. And we are also going to talk about Marvel in general, Marvel Studios, and what we think is going on with Marvel Studios, because there's been a lot of media about that, about whether or not Marvel is done, whether it's over, whether it's just, whether we should start singing death songs over Marvel Studios. And Eric and I have been huge Marvel fans. Probably one of the biggest hallmarks of our mother-daughter relationship is not just our love of movies, but also that we've seen all the big Marvel movies together. Correct?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. No?
Historic. Yeah. In our overall relationship. Sure.
Sure. Okay. So let's start by talking about the Marvels. We saw it yesterday, and we went in with. I would say I went in with lowered expectations.
Yeah, I thought the trailer was stupid.
I did not think the trailer was stupid, but I went in with lowered expectations. But I should first say, by the way, I think I liked Captain Marvel more than you did. Is that true?
I haven't rewatched in a long time. I remember the first time I saw it, I thought it was sort of decent, but wasn't. It's not. I didn't hate it though. Like I think a lot of people have some visceral hate for that movie, but I didn't really. I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I have a whole category of Marvel movies that I think are really good B movies. Not B movies in the classic movie term sense, but I actually think that that's what it means. It means that movies that are good enough so that when you watch them, you kind of enjoy them, even though they're not your favorite by any means, but they have they check all the boxes and they're enjoyable. And then for whatever reason, I've actually seen Captain Marvel a bunch of times. I've rewatched it almost by accident. It's one of those movies that if I'm folding the laundry and it's on, I will keep on and watch it through. And I actually really like the theme. I have mixed feelings about Brie Larson, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But I like the fact, I love the line when she goes, "I've been fighting with one hand tied behind my back." And I also love it when she says to what's-his-face, the Kree, who's played by Jude Law at the end. I love it when she says to him, I don't need to prove anything to you. I love that. I love that when she just blasts him and she goes, "I don't need to prove anything to you." So yeah. I liked Captain Marvel enough as a character that I really, really, Brie Larson was photographed wearing a special sweatshirt, like a tracksuit outfit. It was her uniform. That's it. It was the Captain Marvel uniform as a tracksuit. And I actually suit. Yeah. And I actually wanted the whole tracksuit and I looked for it.
No, God.
So I sort of feel like if I were to own any superhero gear other than my Avengers t-shirt, I think that I would own either Gwen from Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
I love the white hood that comes down. So I would either own Gwen as Spider-Verse or I would own the Captain Marvel.
It's that's tiptoeing into Disney adult territory.
I know.
I want to really go into
I don't want to go there. Yeah.
Especially Captain Marvel. I mean, that's That's like ultra.
Yeah. So let's talk about the movie. Did you like the movie?
I did not like the movie. I mean,
You said you did not like the
I
movie.
didn't hate the movie, which shouldn't be the bar, but I mean it is the bar, which is good enough. But the whole reason why I didn't hate it was mainly because I had no clue what was going on. Like, I can't remember a single. I can remember some stuff that happened, but I don't remember why they happened. Like, I don't know what the plot was about, and I don't know what the character motivations were really. I don't.
There were none, by the way.
Yeah, not really. No, it was just like a hodgepodge of people. But I just don't remember. I don't remember a single thing. So in that sense, it not caring was better than caring and hating it. Is what I will say. But I mean, it was kind of a fun time. You know, there were some really weird and quirky moments in there.
Yeah.
And you know, I'll get into this more, but I just get the feeling that, you know, I feel like they had a longer cut of this movie, and then they just looked at it and went like, yeah, nobody's gonna give a shit. Like, everybody's gonna just like take this out, you know, just like play this up, you know. I feel like they knew. I just feel like they knew what they were getting into, and they decided to highlight the funniest parts and the parts with some of the most heart. But they still, just for the sake of qualifying as a movie, they had to leave in some of the parts that would make it a movie. But it's not a movie. It's just like it's just like friends getting together and like doing something weird, but like for lots of money, for a fuck ton of money.
Yes, well, that's a really good theory about how it came to be.
Yeah.
Like, let's just put in our favorite bits and not really care how much it hangs together, because it doesn't work overall.
Yeah, because overall, I don't think Marvel is making movies anymore. Like, they're making like some spectacles, maybe. I think some of the set pieces are actually not bad. You know, I think some of the fight scenes were cool, although the sound was too. In the theater, the sound
loud.
was like piercing.
We were like this all
like
time.
many times we were covering our. I mean,
Yes,
IMAX can be a little excessive sometimes. Usually, it's like toned down. It's toned up for the trailers and then down for the movie, which I usually have seen, but not for this time.
Yeah.
But like some of that stuff was cool, but it didn't. It's just that's all it was. Like it didn't qualify as like as a story I could identify with.
There was no story.
You know, there was nothing. It was just.
It was nothing. It was nothing. It was really insubstantial. The word that I kept on thinking of was pastiche. It was a pastiche of all these different elements.
Yeah.
And then it was and it did not hang together. The plot made hardly any sense. The villain had nothing to do.
Nothing. Villain was like a kind of a joke, but also it was just an excuse it was somebody to beat up.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. However, I will say that there were quite a few moments when I found myself enjoying myself. Like I was enjoying myself. So there was just for whatever reason, it wasn't maddening, and I think that had to do with. I mean, it wasn't maddening to sort of think, oh, what could have been, like how this could have been a better movie,
right?
Because there are some movies that drive you crazy because you see all the potential, like, oh, if they had just done this and this and this, it would have been a better movie, right? But this, for whatever reason, I didn't sit there and think, oh God, I wish that they had made this a better movie.
Yeah, I know.
And that might have to do with the fact that I've given up on Marvel a little bit, and
absolutely.
that might also have to do with the well, it probably has mostly to do with the fact that I've given up on Marvel.
Yeah.
And also because I had low expectations. However, when I did enjoy, I think that the word that you and I both hit on early on was that movie was weird. Like, it had really weird moments to it. And you sort of thought to yourself, well, why didn't it just like lean into those moments? Like, why didn't it just go whole hog and be weird and wacky?
Exactly.
You know? And so, like, why not just make it an all-out comedy weird movie like Galaxy Quest? Like, you could totally see how that movie could be Galaxy Quest.
Yeah, I think I 1000% think Marvel could go in that direction. Like, you know, if Thor: Love and Thunder was good in that sense, like it would have been good. But yeah, because it was so ridiculous, but some of the jokes just didn't hit.
Yeah.
But like, they could just totally change their genre. But the whole thing is that they're coming off of the success of the original phases or whatever, where they actually could make movies. Like
Yeah.
they were movies, and
Right.
we ingested them and felt for them as such. But
Right.
now that they're trying to keep that up while at the same time doing all this other stuff, like you can't have both really. You just got to go
One way or
one
another.
way or another. And like especially that they're trying to keep up, like, oh, we're setting up the new Avengers, and the new Avengers Endgame is going to be crazy in like 10 years. Like,
Yeah.
nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
especially at the end when at the end when she's trying to assemble Haley Steinfeld's.
Spoiler.
Yeah, no shit. But like, Kamala Khan's trying to assemble the new, and it's like a joke again. Like, she's playing on the idea of showing up
Yeah.
as a incognito or whatever, like, and that was funny. But also it's like, are they trying to make this serious, or is this just like a ragtag team, like, let's just have fun.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I actually thought that is the direction that Marvel was going to go in after Endgame. I thought that they were going to like just experiment with a lot of different genres, so I thought that Spider-Man was with the Tom Holland Spider-Mans were like teenage rom-coms as Spider-Man, and I thought that Ant-Man was supposed to be sort of B-movie comedy, and that actually Ragnarok was going in that direction. So between Peyton Reed and Taika Waititi as directors, I thought that they were going to go in this direction, but I don't think that they've let go of. I think you're right. They invested so much in building the Marvel canon of movies in this phase 1 and phase 2 of Avengers that now they can't fully lean into a completely different path. Although maybe they're trying to, and they just haven't figured out how to do it yet. Maybe they haven't figured how to do enough of a departure. But anyway, in terms of the Marvels, the goofiness was really delightful when they leaned into it.
Yeah, I think
that
so.
musical sequence was hilarious. It was hilarious. And then the other thing that I thought was really well done, the switching powers thing was really, really well done. Okay, so the entanglement of powers. But like when they did that whole practice round of like switching powers, that was very funny to me, and it was really well paced.
Yeah. I mean, okay, something I appreciated about this movie was that it saw itself as like, this is just what we are.
Right.
But once that was realized, it just gets in, gets out. Like, it's such a short experience. Like, it felt, it did feel sometimes.
It didn't feel consequential at all.
Yeah. It didn't feel It didn't feel like the movie was starting. Like,
yes.
We were at like a very climactic scene when I thought, like, wait, didn't we just start? Like, are we just getting to know each other or whatever? But like, so them becoming a team and stuff is sort of rushed, like, especially when they try to introduce some of the character stuff. Like, I don't remember shit about Captain Marvel. I don't remember I didn't watch any of the series. I came in knowing nothing basically. So they establish a little flashback reel in the beginning, which I thought was kind of lazy, but then they bring it back when they all go into the memory thing.
Yeah.
And some of that I was like, holy crap, wait, I'm actually feeling for this a little bit. There's some plot here. And then, they leave and she's like, Monica's all mad at Carol.
Yeah, that's not well established.
Monica was very mad. And then all of a sudden Kamala just comes and just like hugs. And it's like, it's okay. And then she's like, no, come on, come in for the hug. And then like they all hug. And then everything's fine. It's like, wait, I thought that was going to be the plot of the whole movie. It was like she was going to be mad at her the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, but no, they're like, yeah, maybe this matters, but and then they're doing like the fun stuff where they're jump roping stuff, which is fun. But I thought it was like, isn't that kind of something that should be earned? Or like, if they're going to be a team and they're going to work together, figure out how to use each other's powers, like they knew how to do it immediately. Like,
yeah, let's just be clear, nothing was earned.
Yeah,
like
nothing.
Because there was no story that hung together.
Yeah,
that means that no motivations existed and no characters were motivated.
Yeah,
like no, they didn't earn anything.
Yeah, which is a flaw in and of itself, but like made it so that it was just, we could just skip anything that could have been worse.
Yes.
About the movie.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the other thing about the earning part, right? Again, I accepted the fact that was one of the movie's biggest flaws.
Yeah.
No story.
Yeah.
No earn.
Yeah.
Nothing was earned. It bothered me so much in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. It bothered me so much that Shuri became the Black Panther. It was, to me, totally unearned. every single appearance of Shuri previous in the Marvel universe previous to that indicated to me that there's no way she should
Laser,
be.
laser.
That's right, like little laser.
Now I'm ready to become the king of Wakanda,
Exactly.
the queen of Wakanda,
There's
whatever.
like ridiculous. Like Okoye was a far better candidate, but anyway,
Yeah.
we could go down that. But that's what I mean. Like, but I don't understand again why that unearning of becoming Black Panther bothered me, and I think it's because Ryan Coogler, he was in an impossible position shooting that film posthumously to honor Chadwick Boseman, you know? So I think that he really tried to speak to the collective grief of not just losing the King of Wakanda, but also losing Chadwick Boseman. So I think he tried for this hugely profound story, and he missed,
Yeah.
you know? And so therefore the unearning of Shuri as Black Panther feels more consequential because there were more stakes.
Yeah.
And so again, in this one, no stakes, none whatsoever.
Because nobody cares.
Yes.
You know,
And
I don't care.
And I'm really sitting with the fact that like maybe that's not such a bad way to see a movie. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it isn't. Although, you know, it does make some other things like annoying, like the constant exposition. I
Yes.
tuned out. Every time they started explaining what their plan would be, tuned out entirely. Like, so we got to go to quadrant M85 to get the crystal that will get stop the villain from going. So she's gonna go, like, they get so explainy for no reason.
What
I'm
trailer
like,
did we see that was all explaining like that? I'm gonna kill your family and I'm gonna burn your world to the
oh,
ground.
Aquaman, the new Aquaman. That's gonna be
so much. It was like
that's gonna be so much of that,
Yeah.
and that I'm so down for because it's just gonna be so ridiculous.
it was
Like,
the classic example of why do villains have to explain themselves
I
like
think.
that?
I mean, from the trailer at least, I think that might just be like really simple and really cliche. Like, at least I'm understanding what they're saying, and what they're saying is like ridiculous and horrible. Like,
I'm gonna kill your family.
I'm gonna kill your
burn
family.
world.
I'm gonna take away your kingdom. Like, it's really shitty, but like it's so funny.
Behold the king of the ocean.
But you know, like there's only so many times you can do the exposition, and also so many times you could use the trope of like sciencey character starts explaining things and nobody knows what they're saying. Like Monica, I was so annoyed every time Monica had to explain something. She would get into this whole sciencey explanation, like all these words that nobody and everybody would be like
I know. Oh, and when she said, "I always knew I'd have to stay," that to me felt unearned.
Yeah, I was like, what?
That bothered me. Like, what do you mean you always knew you had to stay? I didn't get that at all. I didn't
feel like I've known you for like 2 seconds.
Yeah,
you know?
I didn't think you knew you always had to stay.
Yeah, but like that joke worked maybe 20 years ago, one time, you know? And now every movie's like, English please, and it's like, you know, science. If they're supposed to be smart, it's just like maybe they don't explain things in a way people don't understand.
Yes. The best things about the movie, and especially in terms of performances, right? I watched one episode of Ms. Marvel.
Yeah.
And I talked to you about this actually. I did not like it, although I thought it was well done. That's the other. I thought that it was done in that big kabow bang style. But I think that stuff, I think that when they do true comic book style in a live action film, I would rather have it be animation than that blend of
yeah,
like
that was a cool intro.
Do you see what I mean? Like all the but that's how the entire show was done, you know?
Yeah.
So even not having watched Ms. Marvel past the first episode because I was annoyed by its comic book visuals, I still think that Iman Vellani, who played Kamala Khan, was one of the best things about
She was the
movie.
best part of the movie.
Yes.
Like, if we're gonna go that route of like, we don't give a shit, we're just gonna have fun, like, she's the best person to have on that whole I bet it was fucking so fun to film that movie because it sounds like it was just, you know,
her energy, by the way. I will tell you this interesting callback. I was just rooting for her and I thought that she was delightful, you know, and I loved how she was with her family, and I loved how you know, unabashed she was, like, about being such a nerd for Captain Marvel. You know?
I like that.
I loved all that. It actually reminded me of, you know, the main character from Turning Red. Like, it was that same energy. It was like that same sort of fierce girl. I'm gonna own it. I know I'm not your typical cream puff of a girl. You know what I mean? But I'm a superhero. You know what I mean? And I love that. I love that about her.
And her relationship with her family is really good too.
Yeah,
like,
it's great.
And they feel like a family.
Yes.
You know, I think, you know, the most recent, I'm comparing this a lot to Blue Beetle because that was the most recent superhero movie I saw. That was a family story too. And a lot of people say that was like one of the only good parts of that movie. But I did not feel like they were a family. Like I thought it was I thought it was pretty stupid like writing. At least with Kamal Khan, they sounded like a family. They talked like a family. I was weirded out when the brother called her babes for some reason. I was like, do brothers say that? But that made their whole interaction was really funny.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't see the show, I could tell like that was part of that too.
Yes. My second favorite thing about the Marvels was Nick Fury, and I'm actually really surprised. I'm really surprised that he can still deliver a line at all, given the fact that he's played Nick Fury across so many different settings,
Yeah.
But it was incredibly funny when he said "black girl magic"
Oh yeah,
to
that
make
was
her fly.
funny.
And then it was also really funny when he said strong theory. And so I think that his MO is that he will stay cool no matter what and never panic, But I actually think that was played to good effect. And his series, Secret Invasion, in which I saw 2 episodes, see now I'm like really dabbling in the Marvel series. But Secret Invasion was the first episode was really good, and the second one was just terrible, and it just fell off a cliff,
No.
And it was supposed to be. By the way, I don't know. This was revealed in Secret Invasion, but he's married to a Skrull.
Oh.
Yes. So Secret Invasion is all about how the Skrulls have been secretly infiltrating Earth for years because they lost their home because they were at war with the Kree. And then a rebel faction said that they didn't think it was right that they had infiltrated Earth's society and being forced to live like refugees and like outsiders.
Yeah.
That's what Secret Invasion was about, but they couldn't make it consequential enough. Like they couldn't make that. But Secret Invasion is actually a pretty critical plot line to.
Wait,
the
that's
Marvels.
interesting because I got no sense that he cared at all about that sort of stuff.
Yes. Well, that's why he was up on that space station,
Yeah.
right, coordinating all this sciencey stuff and Earth defense stuff, right? And then for Secret Invasion, he was called down because the Skrulls, there was a rebel terrorist faction of the Skrulls that decided that they were sick of hiding, and so they wanted to basically take over Earth. So he came down and he had to face a lot of crap because he had been up on that space station for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His performance in this movie was really nonchalant. Like,
yes.
It sounded like he really didn't. To me, it sounded like he didn't really care.
Yeah.
But I think it was indicative of like the character, what he's gone through. He just doesn't give a shit at this point. Like, he's already been through fucking hell and back with the other stuff. So he's just like, the guy. There's a part where the guy's like, "We don't have enough escape pods for everybody to get out," and he's like, "Well, just figure it out and come up with a plan B." Like, and he just walks away. It's like, okay, cool. That's how we're dealing with this.
Yeah.
And then obviously the solution is like all the cats and stuff, which ended up being ridiculous.
Well, I think that number one, Secret Invasion, it felt like everybody from Endgame, from that first phase of Avengers, it felt like they all got an effort to tie up their loose ends. So you had Falcon and the Winter Soldier,
Yeah.
So in other words, there was this tying up of loose ends and transitioning to the Young Avengers thing that was happening. So Hawkeye was tying up his loose ends. He was tying up his loose ends when he was Ronin, and then he was also passing the torch to Kate Bishop, who appeared in the Marvels. So and my point is that Nick Fury, by the time he got to the Marvels, it was indeed phoning it in.
Right.
He was phoning it in. He's just been through too much shit. So this is like his I'm phoning it in. And I think he actually might have been treating the that thing in the sky with the high velocity elevator. I think that he was treating that as like his retirement plan.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's that. Anything. So we'll move on to what's going on with Marvel Studios, but I thought the sound was incredibly weird as I kept on poking you during the movie. It was so weird. So it felt like
the score.
It was score or sound design. I'm not sure, but I felt like there was score music playing when there shouldn't have been score music playing, and then there was silence when there like random moments of silence, And so we've talked about this before because some filmmakers know how to use silence really effectively, against a score, like the score signals the big emotional moments, and then you get these moments of silence that actually pull back. But this one, I remember that there's even when there were dialogue scenes, I'd hear the score playing and I'd be like, I would want to scream, turn that off.
Yeah.
So that was weird. I have mixed feelings about Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. I liked her in Captain Marvel. I really liked her in Captain Marvel. But there's a line reading in Endgame that makes me crazy, where she says, "Hey, Peter Parker, got something for me?" I don't like that line reading for whatever reason. It just sticks with me. And then I actually thought that I forget the actress's name now. Tayona Reid or Tayona Harris. She, the one who played Monica, I thought that she did a decent job, except that she was given all this awful dialogue, this awful sciencey exposition dialogue that was really hard to pull off.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you give it on Letterboxd?
2.5.
Oh, interesting. I might feel like it's a 3. Okay.
I think
It really was not good, but
Yeah,
I enjoyed
no.
it for a not good movie. And we talked about this. It didn't make us mad to watch it. I don't know why.
Yeah, because I didn't care.
Yes.
And there were fun moments. And I don't think it should be hated on, although I don't think it should be praised for like this sort of
No,
route, because we know that they can make good movies. That's the whole.
not anymore.
Well, not anymore, but I mean, at one point they could make good movies, and now it's kind of just like, let's fuck around and then like have VFX take care of the rest.
Let's fuck around and find out.
Yeah, fuck around and find out. Part of what drew this movie back was when it tried to be serious. So
Yes.
you know, when Kamala wanted to save all the Skrull, which is very cool character moment. She wants to be a hero, and that's very cool. But then it ends with Captain Marvel saying like, "We can only save so many. Get on the ship."
Yeah.
And then it's like, then they all die.
Yeah, I know.
Then the rest of them die, and it's
That was
like,
bad.
oh, what kind of tone are we going for now? Because then we're going for like,
What kind of tone are we going
I
for?
love Captain Marvel. She's my hero. Let's be heroes. Like, wait, they just died. And-
Yeah, it was not a good movie. It was not a good movie, but it was weirdly enjoyable. That's where we're coming down on this one. Let's just talk about Park Soo-joon, Park Soo-joon.
Okay, that was a funny part. The singing planet.
The Singing Planet was one of my favorite sequences. Oh my god, his English was terrible. The
Yeah, it
line
was
about
pretty
him
bad.
being bilingual was hilarious.
Yeah.
That was hilarious. Really, I don't know how to feel. I mean, he was so good in Itaewon Class, this really well-known K-drama on Netflix, but he was not. I mean, he was kind of funny, but his English was terrible. So it was terrible. Like
Yeah.
his English was even bad when he was singing. That's the other.
It was just good casting because like he's like a heartthrob for, you know, K-drama fans and people kind of in like Kamala Khan's like age group.
Yes.
I think who would know who he is and stuff.
Yes.
I think that was more of a play on that.
Yeah.
Like it didn't really matter who he was.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna leave it at 2.5 stars. Maybe if just barely 3 stars.
I
for
think
me.
three kind of I put for if they actually attempted to like have a story that had an ending and stuff. And I don't think I could give it that. But it was you know, I don't think I'll rewatch it, but yeah.
I bet I'll end up rewatching it. Anyway, let's talk about what's going on.
I do hate women after all, so.
That's true. I was going to bring that up. But...
Love the running joke. Love it.
Let's talk about Marvel Studios. So you did not read the Variety article, but you read Sarah's article about the Variety article. Right?
I think, yeah.
Okay.
But I also just heard a lot about what my friend said about it.
Yes. So the general theory about Marvel is that it's on its way out. Like it's just made so many bad TV shows. Everything post Endgame has been not good. There hasn't been anything like really great. And then there have also been some things that are really bad. And I actually think it's the really bad stuff that is hurting their reputation more than the okay stuff. You know, so like the really bad stuff, like I think that Quantumania upset people. Like I think that Quantumania upset people because it was such a mess.
Especially because Ant-Man was like a fun character.
Yes.
And at if nothing else, that was going to be enjoyable. But since that wasn't even enjoyable,
Yes.
it was that bad.
All right, so let's talk about why we think that Marvel Studios has gone downhill, or we can also talk about how all the different ways that we think it's gone downhill. So the major theory of I mean, Variety, I think, had a lot of theories, but Sarah's big theory when she wrote her article about it was that she just thinks they're trying to make too much stuff.
Hmm.
You know, they're trying to make too much stuff, and that when you have that kind of a pipeline, an overstuffed pipeline, it's impossible to make it good. You
Hmm.
know, and then there are other people who point out that there were lots of bad movies pre Endgame, you know. So they everybody like loves to hate on Thor 1 and Thor 2. Everybody loves to hate on those two movies, and then they love to hate on Iron Man 2. You know, I actually think that the worst movies in this phase are worse than the bad movies in the previous phase.
Yeah.
I think that the
Uh,
Eternals
yeah.
is worse than, for example, Thor 2.
Really, I would probably watch Eternals over Thor 1 or 2.
Oh no,
But
I would
it's
watch
purely
Thor.
for entertainment, though. Like, I think because they have, I like Eternals fight scenes and I like their powers, but everything in the middle was just really ridiculous. But it's very fun to laugh at.
I just thought that was a bad movie, a bad movie. And so, what do you think? Do you think that it's a question of? I think that there's a lot of stuff that's happened behind the scenes. So, for example, number one, I think that it's perfectly possible that Kevin Feige is just tired. Like he's like, I've done my masterpiece. I've ushered in. Marvel Studios came back to life. What more do you want from me? I'm done. I'm working out a succession plan, you know. But then there's all kinds of theories. Bob Chapek took over Disney from Bob Iger, and the reputation is the word on the street is that Bob Iger is far. He gives a lot more free reign to the different studio heads than Bob Chapek did. Like Bob Chapek was a purse strings tightening control freak. That's some of the word on the street about the management of these different studios and whether or not you let them have creative control. The other thing is that their big head of animation at Marvel Studios, she quit under not great circumstances, or she was pushed out under not great circumstances. I forget what her name is. It's something like Victoria. Um, anyway, you can respond. Tell me why, but I'm going to look her up at her name.
Why Marvel Studios is going
Downhill.
downhill? Um, I think because they want to replicate what happened with Endgame, without recognizing that what happened with Endgame was sort of like it wasn't spontaneous, but it was um focused. Like they wanted, it's like we want to create a like they're focused too much on creating like a franchise and creating the merchandise and creating the sequels. Like this is what's gonna set up the next thing because it's gonna get more money and that's gonna get more people and that's gonna like that's what they're focusing on versus story, characters, good filmmaking,
Yes.
all that stuff. So they're seeing the numbers from Endgame and that's what they're focusing on. They're not focusing on like why it was such a sensation. It was because it was good.
Yeah,
um
it was really good. But you know, none of the movies got really, really good. The first Iron Man was good. Okay, let's just acknowledge that the first Iron Man was really good. But none of the movies were great until you got the Winter Soldier,
mm,
basically. So it was really like Winter Soldier, and then Civil War, you know, and then how can I say this? That really set the path, I think, for the wrapping up. Oh, and the first Avengers. I don't think Ultron was all that great, you know, but I think that the first Avengers by Joss Whedon was actually pretty good.
yeah.
You know, it was done really well. It established the characters really well. But I think you may be right that they've just lost focus, you know, and that they're just chasing after the wrong things. But I have another theory as to what they might be trying to do, and that they're not succeeding in doing it.
Yeah.
So
I
go ahead.
think, I mean, I know that those were not as good too, or the movies before the era was ushered in when they would introduce a lot better movies.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there was just more of an attempt to have story and characters.
Yeah.
Even if it fell flat, because that is what it will often do sometimes. And
Yes.
sometimes sequels will make that better. You know?
Yes. So, I have a thought though, and I bet that this is not true because I can't imagine them being this unintentional about it. But I think it's really hard when you're coming on the heels of a success like the Endgame era, the Avengers chapter that started in 2012 and then ended with Endgame, right? I think after that, I think that the thing that you have to do is to, go in a completely different direction or try things new and figure out how much of the canon you can respect. It's the same Star Wars problem, and so it's the same, like, do you want to go and tell origin stories? Like, for example, everybody hated Solo. So much they hated Solo, but they love there's a rabid fan base around Andor. So like Andor is considered to be a successful experiment, right? And then so was Rogue One.
Yeah.
But all the other series were not. All the other movies were considered to be outright like horrors, And so I think that Marvel had a diversity problem. I think it had a big diversity problem. I think it was a universe, and so was the comic book world in general. It's like dominated by white men,
Yeah.
And so then all of a sudden now they're bringing in these different voices. Nia DaCosta, who directed the Marvels, and then Chloe Zhao, who directed the Eternals. You know. And so the question is, what do you do when you're trying to diversify, give people more chances, and you're trying to give them more chances to direct these big tent, like hugely profitable, and so I guess for me the question is always like, what is the margin for error and what is the margin for failure? Because I think that the margin for error, the old saying in Hollywood is that white men have been making shitty movies for a long time and they seem to bounce back, with the classic example, by the way, being Brett Ratner, who people in the Marvel universe fucking hate because he made that terrible X-Men 3 that everybody hated, and yet he kept on getting more and more chances as if he was like some, I don't know, like he was some like god of a director. He just kept on getting jobs, know? So the question is like whether or not directors and filmmakers like Chloe Zhao and Nia DaCosta are being given the chance to try things and to fail,
Maybe
it's kind of crushing that they're not succeeding. Do you know what I mean? Like it's crushing.
I feel like a more natural way that this would have been carried out, because after Endgame they're just trying to like pump the stuff out to keep it going.
Right.
But some time would have allowed the generations that saw these movies, saw what was great about them, to sit with them. Like we just had this great experience with this whole arc, and then for that generation of filmmakers of diverse filmmakers too, to come up and actually understand what makes those movies good.
Yes.
And so like them passing the torch to them is what the real way to do it would be. But instead, since they're trying to pump it out, and since they're trying to make sure that the hype train keeps going, they give it to auteur directors or directors who are diverse, who have good films, but maybe who are not as well versed in that part of filmmaking, or even care. Who knows? Like
I don't know.
Like look at Chloe Zhao's work before. Like, wasn't it her first superhero movie?
Oh yeah. And not only that, but her movies before this are so singularly focused in such a much smaller landscape.
Yeah.
And actually, directors have spoken about this with Marvel, and Joss Whedon spoke about this too.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a transition to go from directing like a set that's a storyline that takes place in one place.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you are managing massive numbers of storylines, massive, numbers of characters, right? And then I mean, he felt like Ultron like almost killed him. He's not a nice guy. He used to be a huge Joss Whedon, but now his reputation has been tarnished. But anyway, my point is that a lot of directors have said, I either never want to direct a Marvel movie, or I don't want to get it, or I never want to direct another one, because it crashes down on them so heavily. So, for example, Edgar Wright was let go from the first Ant-Man, and it's because he had this vision for the first Ant-Man that was completely quirky and weird. Edgar Wright is quirky. He did Scott Pilgrim, and so he's super, super quirky and weird, and Peyton Reed came in, and it took a little bit of effort. The first film was sort of a weird balance between Edgar Wright's vision and Peyton Reed's vision, and it wasn't until Ant-Man and the Wasp that his vision really sank in, and then he completely threw it away in the toilet with Quantumania, apparently, which
a lot of people don't like Ant-Man and the Wasp. I don't know if you knew.
Oh, I love Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think it's so funny, but I think I love it because of Paul Rudd.
Yeah. But
so funny.
yeah, and I think an example people like to throw up for giving it to a good director who might not have worked that much in in that sort of space would be Taika Waititi.
Oh yeah.
But like, look what happened. It's like you gave him Thor, which had a shit reputation,
Right.
But then they gave him Ragnarok and just made it like really fun and interesting.
Yeah.
And that worked out. But then Love and Thunder, you're trying to keep it going and it fell flat. Like, and I think that's just such a telling example.
Yes, it is. He was burnt out, and he said that he was burnt out.
Right.
He said that he had days of writing where he felt like he was just like blah 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 blah. Maybe this happens. And maybe this happens.
Yeah, the best kinds of.
You could tell, by the way.
Yeah, the best kinds of things are when these people live and breathe these characters and these stories. I mean, I'm sure the Russo brothers, felt that when they were working on these movies, and they worked on, was it 4 movies?
Yeah.
So that was their whole lives.
I know, and it's interesting because whatever that quartet is of like the screenwriters Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, and then the Russo brothers directing, for whatever reason, the Russo brothers, everything that they've produced since Endgame has been shit. Yeah. Like completely lacking a soul. Yeah. Sorry, I mean I think they seem like really nice guys, but it's completely lacking a soul.
One of my friends gave me a whole summation of their career and like what kind of movies they made. I honestly kind of forgot what he said, but like, but he very eloquently explained why they're not as like propped up, as they should be.
This thing that's happened to Marvel Studios in the post Endgame era is such an interesting to me commentary on creation and the commercial enterprise of filmmaking. So I think about this almost all the time because, even in working in the nonprofit space, you get this great little nonprofit organization that's doing an amazing job doing something like, helping, people find jobs, in a neighborhood that's been really poor. And then this is a problem that many, many people have tried to solve, and yet this tiny little organization has figured out how to do it really well and has an astonishing success rate. And then everybody talks, well, how do we replicate it? How do we replicate that success? And then it gets really big, and then the quality, like nobody can replicate it. Yeah. Do you see what I mean? So I guess my point is that Kevin Feige was always credited as being the voice and the vision and the drive between that whole phase of Avengers. Like he was holding that whole universe in his head, right? And then in the post-Endgame era, regardless because he's burnt out or because he was trying to diversify the filmmakers or whatever, and then there's the multiverse problem. They fucked around with the multiverse and they're not doing a good job of it. They really are doing a terrible job of it, And then they had the whole VFX disaster where the Marvel studios say that, the Marvel VFX artists say that they're completely underpaid and overworked. It was Victoria Alonso who left last March. So you have this like combination of problems, and it's feeling really bleak. You know what I mean? Like none of us we're starting to not care anymore. Yeah. And I thought that there was nothing I could care more about than a good Marvel movie. Like it was so great to be excited about. It was so great to be waiting in queue to buy tickets, and to be really excited when the pre-sales would open up for like these movies that you were dying to see. Yeah. So just as a fan, I'm really sad. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm not sympathetic. I'm not going, hey, Marvel sucks. You should get your act together, blah, blah, blah. I actually think that they are trying to make things right, but that they have just fallen victim to too many problems and too much content and churning out too much crappy stuff. So I think that whenever you think about a string of successes, like a string of great movies or, 4 seasons in a row of great television, for example, I think that you can usually trace back the quality control piece, like the person who's like fiercely arguing for the vision or fiercely pushing it. I think you can argue that there's always 1 or 2 people who people will point to and say it's that person who really, it's just like when we talked about the sound guy, what's his face, Bert. Like if you think to yourself, my God, Ben Burt, if you say to yourself, oh, I've seen 8 movies, and then you notice that he's credited, or like Hans Zimmer, like if you start noticing all these things, you can always point to the one person who was really good at quality control, and so who was responsible for driving the best parts of the experience. So I guess my huge hope for Marvel is that I want these directors that they've brought on to get another chance. I don't know if I want them to. I don't know if I want them to continue directing superhero movies, but I do want them to keep on getting a chance to find their vision and I want them to be in a place where somebody is driving the quality at a high level,
Yeah.
but that they are able to do creative, interesting experiments underneath.
Right. And then this just reminded me of something, because in an ideal world, like, they would have had their heyday, and then people would have been able to step up and do whatever they wanted
Yes.
on their own.
Yes.
So, but because Disney has changed the laws on IP and
Yes.
and copyright and intellectual property, they will have it forever. And something that this I'm comparing this to, because we just talked about Nintendo as a gaming company, was the Pokemon franchise, because Pokemon, Pokemon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pokemon has been held by the same studio, Game Freak, for as long as it's come out.
Wow.
So every single game has been coming out from Game Freak.
Yes.
But essentially what that means is like Pokemon has been always like the same game. It's you're in a new region and you have new Pokemon, but you have the exact same journey where you get a Pokemon
Yes.
and you go on a journey. Like it's play by play, basically the same thing. And it was only recently in the last 3 years they decided to do something different, which was having you with your Pokemon like go out into the world,
Yeah.
and like explore.
Yeah.
But it was like,
They're everywhere in our area, by the way.
Yeah,
Every
but-
single weekend.
but
you see people just standing around going like this.
oh yeah. See, Pokemon Go, like that's another new thing that they've done. Or I don't think Game Freak did that, but anyways, like, so stuff like that. That's a lot of people say like that's where Pokemon is. Like that's where the new stuff should be coming out of. But because Game Freak has a hold on the label,
Yeah.
they're the only ones who can do anything, and they can't give it to, or they don't want to give it to other smaller studios to make like fun stuff.
Yes.
And they showed this too with Star Wars. They gave
Ryan Johnson.
Yeah, they gave Ryan Johnson that, but like there's Visions too. They gave anime studios
That's
Star
right.
Wars
That's right.
licensing.
That's right.
So as soon as you start, I mean, not all of Visions was good too, but a lot of it was. And as soon as you start sharing, as soon as you start being humans and collectively, coming up with things together and working on, and it doesn't matter like who owns what or the property and shit.
Yeah.
Like that, you can come up with some really interesting stuff. But because of money and capital, like it's not gonna happen. So.
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, I did not want Kevin Feige to continue exercising iron control past Endgame, and I didn't want the Russo brothers to direct every film post
Yeah,
Endgame.
that's just a natural artist thing. Artists will want to move on to new things.
That's right. I want them to move on to do new things, but I want. How can I say that? I wanted all these directors to be given a chance. I wanted half the content that's been coming out.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Marble? I wanted half the fucking content that's been coming out. So stop spamming me with a new series all the time.
Yeah.
Okay? And then I wanted these different directors to be given a shot. It would be great if they were given more of a training ground from TV to half the series, but training ground. And then the tentpole movies, that they were given more mentorship and guidance by somebody other than Kevin Feige, but with sort of the same, oversight, like oversight that you could see across all the different universes.
Yeah, I guess mentoring and giving them some more help would be nice, but like I think there's also probably people who just work in these kinds of fields from the get that they're just not looking at, like I'm sure a lot of people in the TV world would be great at, because TV has to manage a lot of that stuff. And like they brought in, for Star Wars, they brought in Jenny Tarkovsky in 2003
right.
for like the Clone Wars. He didn't work on anything Star Wars related, but he brought in elements from this war show he liked, and he brought in like all the stuff from Samurai Jack that he worked on, like all that stuff into this Star Wars piece, which is like you would never think to do that, but it's somebody with a vision, and there's a lot of people with vision. It's just you have to balance like what they've worked on, their repertoire, like what they're known for, what you want to put out there.
I want to be clear. In terms of like thinking that Endgame was the end game, so to speak,
Yeah.
I am not one of those people who say that we do have too much content coming out of Marvel Studios. However, I'm not one of those people who think, oh, we shouldn't have any more superhero movies. Martin
Oh,
Scorsese looking at you. Because I think your movies are kind of sucky, actually.
yeah.
So I don't think you should be talking shit about superhero movies as if they're the problem. Because actually, I'm sorry, but toxic white guys centering themselves in movies about Native American culture, that might be as big of a problem. Anywho, okay, I'm done. I had to get that off my chest.
I mean, I will say I'm starting to understand Martin Scorsese's thoughts more. You know, when he came out about that shitty whatever. But
I would be happy if they were superhero movies till the end of time.
yeah,
But I want them to be good, and I want them to be rare events. That's all I'm asking, is
Yeah.
to be rare events.
Yeah.
How do you feel about superhero movies? Or superheroes in general?
I mean, that's like some of my favorite stuff.
It is some of my favorite stuff.
Like when that shouldn't bar superhero movies from being made. It just needs to be handled differently.
Yeah.
Every single thing like has a vision and has an audience. It just has to be, cultivated and
Yes.
done well.
Yes.
Which is hard, obviously, but
Yes.
that doesn't, because there'll be a big heaping pile of shit, like doesn't mean it should just bar them entirely from doing it. Think of how many bad adaptations there have been, especially from Disney, but like live action adaptations or adaptations from books that people, they read the book, and Twilight, freaking, that was a whole thing. Lots of people hate those movies, but
Yeah.
more people love those
Yeah.
movies.
I also am never wanting to fight about DC versus Marvel. I absolutely think that Marvel. I think that Marvel kicked DC's ass up till Endgame, big time. I think that DC Studios shoots itself in the foot, especially by over-investing in like the Zack Snyders of the world. And I also think that the DC fanboy base is way more toxic. Although there's nothing at some points. I think that there's really nothing to distinguish between toxic Star Wars fanboys, toxic DC fanboys, and toxic superhero fanboys in general.
Yeah.
Like it's just a lot of incels. So dudes, I'm so sorry that, just be a better human. That's
Yeah.
all I can say. Be a better human being. That's my advice to you.
I would watch most anything over this latest Blue Beetle. It sucked. I hated
I'm
it.
so sorry that it was so bad.
I wanted that to be kind of just stupid fun, but it ended up being like really brainless and awful.
Yeah, there hasn't been much good coming out of DC Studios. Although the Batman,
Oh yeah, that was good.
I thought the Batman was pretty good. So I like the Batman. I want Marvel to survive. I want DC to survive, and I want there to be. I want the films that are the studios that are responsible for churning out the superhero content. I just want you to do a better job. So I just want you to know I haven't given up on you yet. I just want you to do a better job, and I do want you to tackle the diversity problem. And I want you to tackle the diversity problem not by putting in stupid scenes with all of the female Avengers. I don't like that. Don't do that. That's pandering.
Yeah.
That's gratuitous. Just write some good stories. Write some good stories
Yeah.
with really good characters in them.
Yeah.
It sounds so easy, right? When
Yeah.
we say it, when we debate it. Just write a good story.
I forgot who I was talking.
Just write a good story.
I forgot who I was talking with, but when we were talking about really old Disney animated movies, all of those movies are based on some story, or some like famous, like a lot of them are based on like Shakespeare. I think it was Lion King, like Hamlet. I
Yes.
think. So even there's nothing wrong with just like copying something else. I think maybe that's another thing, is they're trying to be unique in their own thing, but they could just nothing's original.
I am so at the heart of it in my fandness of superhero movies or superheroes in general. I still feel so much gratitude. So for me, it was not comic books. It was Saturday morning cartoons and watching like X-Men and Spider-Man and all those, and Justice League was a big one. A huge, big deal to me. And so there are all these are all the cultural references from my childhood. And when Marvel Studios started hitting it out of the park, like when Dad and I went to see Iron Man, I could not be more delighted. So there's every part of me that wants them to succeed simply as a fan. I would like them, you know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
want the next generation to be good.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what happens with Young Avengers, but it's not looking great right now.
We also forgot to talk about the post-credit scene.
Which one?
The with the, I mean, spoilers, but the one with Beast, and they're teasing like X-Men. That Beast just shows up at the end of the movie. So yeah, I guess I don't really care, but I just thought I'd mention
really
that.
care.
It was kind of a big thing.
I don't really care. I don't really care. I love X-Men, don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah.
But I don't really care.
Yeah, I remember I talked with a friend about this, but suspicions about Deadpool 3.
Oh, yeah.
This probably might be bad. So
I don't know if it's going to be bad, actually. I mean, that's a partnership between Ryan Reynolds and Sean Levy.
yeah.
And the two films so far, the two Deadpool films, have been super, super funny, you know? So I thought Deadpool 2 was hilarious.
I heard they had some new people working on it that had not worked on some good stuff. Anyways, we'll see, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, please, every young person, every up-and-coming filmmaker deserves a chance, and everyone deserves to have a moment to be able to fail and bounce back from it. But it is so crushing when they don't do well. I cannot tell you how crushed I was to have one of my favorite children's books rendered incoherent by Ava DuVernay, who I thought Selma was so beautiful, so brilliant, and when I saw A Wrinkle in Time, her version, I just thought it was horrible.
Yeah.
So anyway, please just move cautiously, and I mean, I just want people to know that I have a great deal of forgiveness in my heart for these successes, but some of these movies are really upsetting to watch. I found The Eternals really upsetting to watch, and that's why I'm feeling weirdly grateful that The Marvels was not upsetting to watch. Like, I'm just upset. I'm glad that it didn't leave more of a mark.
Yeah, but I guess it's just probably, if this came out like, you know, right after Endgame, maybe we'd feel differently.
Maybe.
But we are so desensitized probably to the routine.
Yeah, maybe. All right. So I think we're going to end in an hour, and I'm not going to forget. Eric, I love you. I'm so happy that you're home.
Love you too. Yeah, it's good to be back. Talking about the Marvels and Marvel.
It's just fun to go see movies together.
Yeah. And
then to be able to talk about them in real time together. I mean, this is all better done together, but it's also truly enjoyable to do it to do it in any format.
Yeah, Mom had a quesadilla in the theater.
That's a funny story. I'm just going to say one thing about the quesadilla. Getting older, my vision in the dark has gotten worse and worse and worse. So when you climbed up to that top row of the IMAX where we were seated, you went into the row, and it was as if you disappeared into the void. I could not see anything, right? I couldn't see anything. And so I was sitting there going, oh my God, I hope we get a daylight preview so that I can find my way to the seat. And then when you lit up your phone and showed the seat, I was so relieved. And so I was able to blindingly fumble my way to our seat. Then that was number one. And then number two, we went to a theater. I hadn't had lunch, so I ordered a chicken quesadilla, and they delivered the chicken quesadilla to our seat. And during any dark moment in the movie, I couldn't see anything. So this is how I felt.
Yeah, they give you a full ass meal, and you're just like, you can't. If it suddenly cuts to a scene in space, you can't see anything.
I know, it was like a blind person trying to tell somebody who they were by feeling their face. I felt like I have my finger, and you and I share this. We do not like engaging with messy food. We don't like dealing with it. So the feeling of putting my fingertips into the container and then feeling around the triangles of quesadillas and then trying to also figure out where the dips were was just so annoying. So again, a miracle that I was not more annoyed by that movie, right?
Yeah, it is a miracle.
All right.
It was kind of fun.
All right, to all of our listeners, two of you,
Alex,
one of you. Hi, Alex. Thank you so much for listening. And Eric, I love you so much.
Love you too. That was good. Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.